I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, February the 18th, President's Day. We're just going to see what we get into at the start of this week, the response to the disappointing 125 live cash trade last week on your fat cattle market. 2 weeks ago we thought we'd have sure been at 128 by now, if not 130, and now we were unable to gain the ground that we should have week before last, and then this past week was disappointing, and so it's going to limit how much market position we get before this little rush kind of peters out here sometime in March or early April. But you know, if we were going to get to 135, we may only get to 132 now. Maybe if we were going to get to 132, we'll only get to 130. We're still going to gain some ground here the next several weeks, but it was kind of a big fail here the last couple of weeks, the way that we handled the cash fat cattle trade. Look at your board for last week. February live cattle futures ended the week at 126.62, down 75 cents for the week. April ended at 127.17, also down 75 cents for the week. March feeder cattle ended at 142.60, down $1.50 with a big loss late in the week. Probably had something to do with that disappointing fat cattle trade. April feeder cattle futures ended the week at 145.22, down 68. Like I said, fat cattle trade was only steady. Just the week before, your packers were begging cattle feeders to take 126. They wanted 127. Only a few got 125, and it was an incomplete trade. And this week, you know, that it was just had no more leverage to go on to, and so just kind of bound to take what the packers gave at 125. $200 dressed. Box beef cutout values were a pinch lower. The average trade for last week on choice cuts was 216.68. That was down just 18 cents from the previous week's average. Selects at 212.05, down 27 cents. Your slaughter lighter because we knew we had some shutdowns, and mainly at Fort Morgan there, and so we know it's going to be lighter, probably going to be lighter this week too as they finish that up. But 596,000 head slaughtered for last week, 24,000 less than the previous week, and 6,000 less than the same week a year ago. Look at our production sale schedule at dvauction.com. I mean tons, like 30 or 40 production sales every weekend, and then several through the week. But if you guys are shopping for some replacement stock, you need a bull, you need to buy some fancy replacement females to add into your herd, you need to get on dvauction.com. Search through all the sales we're going to have. You can bid and view right from your home or from your pad and sitting in your pickup or wherever you want to do it. But we got a lot of big sales coming up here in the near future. One of them is going to be up in Canada, or we have several up in Canada. We're international. We do serve the good folks up in Canada. M&J Farms, Glassman's there, have Simmentals and Angus and Sim Angus cattle there, both red and black. Really nice looking cattle on there. Their sale is going to be Wednesday, February the 20th. And you want to get on and look at those cattle. I got videos up, got the catalog there, and you can look at those cattle and be ready for the sale on Wednesday, February the 20th. Going to be held on the farm up in Russell, Manitoba, Canada. Look at your feeder market for last week. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central based on an 800-pound steer ended the week at 141.55. That was 31 cents lower than the end of the previous week. So even though the market wasn't a ball of fire, didn't lose a lot of ground. Actually, your cash feeders in your sales, the feeder weight cattle, which a lot of those are just big calves, they were just unevenly steady, depending on where you were at regionally. Some places where you had a lot of farmer feeder demand and they wanted some of those 6 and light 7 weight feeders to eat up a lot of that cheap corn. Some places they were higher. Some places it was the opposite. Maybe in the southern plains they wanted some big heavier feeders that might, you know, finish out before we lose any more of the market position than we have on fat cattle trade. But unevenly steady on feeder weights. Different story on calves and stocker cattle. I tell you what, with all this moisture we've had through the winter, all the deep snow, all the rainy conditions we had in Oklahoma, going across the southeast, everywhere except for the Texas Panhandle and eastern New Mexico, but there's been a lot of moisture. There's going to be a ton of cheap gain to be had on grazing. Both graze out wheat, there's going to be a ton of that. Going to be a lot of early grass that can be turned out on pretty darn quick. And I tell you what, there's not going to be enough lightweight cattle to go around to graze up all the forage that we're going to have available. Calves were $2 to $5 higher again this week. Spots more on the right kind of steers, especially in the southeast. Guys are ordering those southeastern calves like crazy. Those order buyers down there are really humping up and putting loads together to send out west to turn out on the Flint Hills, the Osage, and some of that graze out wheat in Oklahoma. But let's have a couple of individual quotes. This is also, the first one I'm going to give you, a result of all that grazing that's going to be had if we ever get any warmer temperatures and sunshine out. But border trade, Santa Teresa Livestock Auction got a sale barn right on the border. These are Mexican cattle crossing, coming north into the United States. 100 head, 450 4-pound stocker steers at $183 1/4. Pretty darn good price down on the border there. Up in the Midwest, good sale up in Dunlap, Iowa. 142 head of steers on Friday, weighed 797 at $151. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.